Welcome to another episode of Unmasking Dyslexia. I am Carleen, your host. Have you heard this statistic? If you are dyslexic, you have a high chance of developing dementia or Alzheimer's. Nobody wants to hear a statistic like that, especially when it is something that society looks at with very limited knowledge in knowing how to prevent it. So in 2024, there was genetic research that showcased that those who are dyslexic have a higher chance of developing Alzheimer's, but not necessarily the other forms of dementia. Most people don't even realize that there's multiple forms of dementia. They all think that dementia and Alzheimer's are the same thing. However, Alzheimer's is a subtype or a type of dementia. And dyslexics have a high chance of developing that. Now, let's kind of reduce some of the anxiety and think that this is only applying to dyslexics, because it's not. If you then research ADHD, autism, or even highly sensitive persons, or HSPs, you'll find that those groups also have a higher chance of developing dementia. So why is that? It's not just dyslexics, it's all neurodiverse individuals. Okay, so if we take a step back from neurodiversity and dyslexia and look into the research of Alzheimer's, what we can find is that those that develop Alzheimer's develop it not only because of genetic predisposition. They also find that even though some individuals where they did autopsies on afterwards and found that their brains were full of the plaque that causes dementia, these individuals didn't actually showcase the signs. So why is that? And what they found was that these individuals actually had a positive or an increased outlook on life. They were happy. They had decreased stress, increased well-being, decreased levels of depression, anxiety. So this is the kicker. It's the mindset. Let's look at the mindset. When we look at research that is linked to dyslexia and well-being, what we find is that dyslexics have an increased level of overwhelm, increased anxiety, increased levels of depression, decreased levels of self-esteem, and increased levels of social difficulty. Okay, so within positive psychology and the science of well-being, when we look at that, that actually marks majority of the areas that we need to increase to have better well-being. And dyslexics have poor well-being. So why did dyslexics have this decrease in well-being? Well, if we take a look at it, dyslexics are regularly bullied by society, by teachers, by bosses, by other people, by them not understanding what dyslexia is. Dyslexics have our challenges where we'll showcase these and we can feel bad about ourselves when it does. Dyslexia is misquoted. Okay, how many of you heard that dyslexia is 1 in 20%, about 20% of the world's population? 1 in 20 will have dyslexia. Here's the statistic. And this is the issue with people quickly taking statistics from studies and not reading the whole context. It's 1 in 20 for learning disabilities. Learning disabilities does not equal dyslexia. When we look at learning disabilities with dementia, what we find is that it's 1 in 5 of those with learning disabilities can develop dementia. And the regular population is 1 in 11. But remember, that does not mean that is dyslexics. It doesn't mean it at all, because dyslexia is only a sub-part of what psychologists classify as learning disabilities. It's not the same. When we are looking at the research out there, we have to follow it to the original quotations. Like, who was the first person to say this? And what we find is too often People use the statistics for learning disabilities and apply it to dyslexia. This is an error. The information that they are sharing then is obsolete because they're quoting the wrong statistics. What we do know through the 2024 research study is that dyslexics have a higher chance of Alzheimer's. Still not great. So how, as dyslexics, can we shift this? Now, remember, I talked about how dementia research showed that if you had a positive outlook on life, you actually decreased your levels of not necessarily developing the plaques, but developing the consequences that can come from having the plaques in your brain. You may live your whole life and never, ever showcase dementia. Basically, epigenetics would say you turned off those genes. Okay, to increase our well-being for us dyslexics is important. This is almost part of our mental health and especially our mental well-being. So taking a look at that, what we want to look at is we want to increase those positive social interactions. So dyslexics, surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who make you feel better. It's going to increase your well-being. Start looking for the strengths that you have in your life as a dyslexic person and just as a person. What is it that you do really, really good? What is it that you can bring forth? What aspect of your dyslexia can you think of that makes you have a benefit to situations that other people don't get it? Do you have big picture thinking? Can you find patterns in things that nobody can? Doesn't matter how abstract they are. Can you find the patterns? Can you solve problems super fast? Those are all dyslexic strengths. Think about it. What are your dyslexic strengths? And then what innate strengths do you have that just make you you? Are you super empathetic? Do you have a love of learning? Are you curious? Do you have appreciation of beauty and excellence? What is it that you bring to each interaction you have? Focus on that. The more that we focus on our strengths and work with them, the higher our levels of well-being will go. So for us dyslexics, if we want to counteract all what the genetic research is showing with us with Alzheimer's, we want to increase our outlook on life, eat healthier, live a healthy lifestyle. So don't just look at the statistics. Don't listen to the people who are out there to scare you. Look at it that there is some control here, and it all starts by increasing your quality of life.